I'll now call to order the virtual meeting of the Planning Advisory Committee. All participants are asked to keep microphones on mute, cameras off during staff presentations and committee discussions. Participants wishing to speak to an application during the public meeting portion of this meeting will be called on by name one at a time during the public meeting. At that time, the participant is called on may unmute their microphone and turn on their camera if they wish to speak. If you wish to speak to or receive further notice regarding the application and have not signed in with the recording secretary, please speak now. Public participants will receive another sign-in opportunity when the public meeting portion of this meeting is called to order. I am John Wanless, Chair of the Planning Advisory Committee. I will now take attendance of our committee members and staff. Please raise your hand or declare your presence when I call your name. Bill Curry. Jacqueline Grimes.
Present.
Councillor Wendy Alford.
Present.
Bill Widdenmeyer.
Present.
Jack Anderson. Councillor Jay Brennan.
Present.
Senior Planner Carl Grenke.
Present.
Planning Coordinator Mary Remig.
Present.
To review, committee members are asked to raise their hand when they wish to speak. Members participating by phone will be called on from time to time to speak to an application. Alternatively, please find an appropriate opportunity to, at any available time, to notify the chair verbally if you wish to speak. Can I have a motion for an approval of the agenda, please?
So moved.
Bill, seconded by Wendy. All in favor? Carried. Adoption of minutes, we don't have any. Disclosure of monetary interests. We'll now go to the public, open the public meeting. We'll open the public meeting portion of the Planning Advisory Committee. Please be advised you may leave this meeting at any time. Applicants, agents, members of the public logged into Zoom to participate in this public meeting are asked to please keep their microphones on mute and cameras off until called on by the chair. If you wish to speak to an application and have not signed in with the recording secretary, please speak now. The purpose of this Planning Advisory Committee meeting is to consider two applications in front of us. Consent application B20-06 and the revised submission of subdivision application SD-19-02. First application B20-06 seeks to divide two parcels that were inadvertently merged upon enactment of the Planning Act. This application would recreate the original parcel located at 2 Greg Street so it can be conveyed separately. And the revised submission of the subdivision application SD-19-02 for a draft plan of submission submitted by Bill Holtzman of Holtzman Consultants Incorporated on behalf of Parkview Homes to accommodate a total of 251 residential units where 194 residential units was previously proposed. This meeting is the opportunity to provide any feedback on these applications, and the Planning Advisory Committee welcomes any questions and comments you may have. We encourage you to do so at this public meeting, as the Planning Act rules suggest that the public's ability to voice objections later in the process may be limited if a written or oral comment is not submitted. The Planning Advisory Committee is the approval authority for the severance applications. The committee may choose to make a decision on this application this evening. Town Council is the approval authority for plans of subdivision. The committee will review the application and any comments or concerns from the public to inform their decision on the application B20-06 and their recommendations to council for application SD-19-02. I will now pass the meeting over to our senior planner, Carl Grenke, to report on notification and summary of application B20-06. Following his presentation, I will call on public participants one at a time to offer feedback, comments, or questions regarding the proposal. I will also offer the applicant or their agent in attendance an opportunity to address any concerns brought to the committee by the public. Carl, I'll call on Carl now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dave, could we tee up the first PowerPoint presentation for this evening, please? Thank you. So as noted, this application is sort of a technical severance of property on Gregg Street, close to the Hank's Tire shop. Next slide, please. So these are the lands that we're looking at. We're in a bit of an interesting situation. These parcels have they've been bought and sold separately over many years. However, the lawyer who's involved in a transfer right now has determined actually that technically they are merged through an instrument of the Planning Act many years ago. So in order to allow 2 Gregg Street with the house to be sold separately, it would need to be redivided from the rest of the parcel. So this application seeks to do that and essentially restore the lot lines that have sort of been de facto in place through separate municipal assessment for many years. So the proposal would create a separate property at 2 Gregg Street with the house and about roughly 3,000 square feet in size, and then the retained parcel would be largely vacant. That would surround it on 2 sides. Next slide, please. So the property it does contain a house built around the 40s, and of course it's connected with a detached garage associated with the house and a large parking area that's associated with the Hank's Tire shop. It's located in mixed-use area at the north end of town. So there's a variety of industrial and commercial use. There's also some residential use sort of the south end of Franklin Street. So the house, the proposed lot obviously contains a residential use, and that doesn't conform with the existing light industrial zoning. However, the applicant's lawyer provided a very helpful overview of the history of the parcel, how development happened, when it happened, how the parcels were bought and sold, and provided a legal opinion that the use and lot status here are indeed legal non-conforming. We're not creating a planning problem by creating a residential lot in an industrial zone. So that's certainly that was a very helpful submission and one that staff have reviewed and accepted. Next slide, please. So this is just the context provided by the property owner, showing the local situation there. Next slide, please. And there it is zoomed in again, and unfortunately didn't transfer terribly clearly onto the screen here. Next slide, please. So when we're looking at a severance application, any severance application, we of course have to consider our guiding policy documents, including the official plan, which identifies the severed lands within the uptown mixed use designation and the retained lands within corridor commercial and uptown mixed use designation. As noted, the severed property is entirely within the light industrial zone. However, the light industrial zone actually does not prescribe a minimum lot size or frontage. So technically this parcel would comply with those standards. Next slide, please. So right now, the purpose of the public meeting before the committee can consider granting the severance It is an opportunity for the public to be notified and to participate if they choose. It's an opportunity for feedback to be provided and for the applicants also to answer any questions that come in, and that helps inform the committee's decision. Next slide, please. So we haven't received any written feedback from any departments, agencies, or the public in response to this application. Next slide, please. So I think in this case, when we're looking at it, it really it serves to formalize and restore a long-standing lot configuration. The properties have been treated as two separate parcels for many years through taxation and even through the land registry. The lawyer had identified the issue many years ago through his very diligent searching, which has resulted in this application that's before us. But the application doesn't serve to really change the lay of the land at all. We did need to have a closer look at the residential status of the severed lot, and certainly it would be problematic to create a residential development and a residential lot within an industrial zone, because that could lead to compatibility concerns, which may affect obviously the operation of the surrounding residential use. However, the legal opinion we've received was very helpful in asserting that this residential use is indeed grandfathered, and that was something that we did, an angle that we did have to look at. But at the end of the day, any future construction, renovations, or additions will be evaluated on their own merit. Any proposal to expand a residential use, of course, we'd be needing to look at the Planning Act provisions relating expanding a grandfathered use. So really, this application, in our opinion, is technical in nature and effect. Next slide, please. So based on that, we recommend the committee approves the application subject to conditions that subject to routine conditions of consent approval. So a survey, if that's required by the registry office to finalize this, and then also that the owner provides that information to us, the copy of the digital and the deed and transfer documents, and of course that the property owner be up to date on all outstanding taxes. So those are routine conditions for any consent application. So I'll pause there and pass the baton back to the chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Carl. We will begin hearing from members of the public. All comments and questions need to be addressed through the chair. If you have signed in with the recording secretary and have requested to speak to this application, I will call on you by name one at a time to offer your feedback. We have no written consent or anybody signed in for this, so I'm going to turn this over to the applicant if they would like to speak. Marie?
Yes.
Okay, would you like to speak to this too?
As Carl said, this land has been in residential use since the 1940s before the Planning Act, and the issue has simply come up in the parcel trying to be sold. The lawyer has brought this technicality that the Planning Act merged these two parcels together inadvertently. So I think Carl did a really good job there in explaining. The lawyer did a great job on the research, and it has been bought and sold twice as a separate entity, and
Always as a house as well.
and always as a house, always as a residential house. So this is a technicality to move forward to actually have a proper deed in the event of the sale of the property.
Officiating.
Okay.
Yeah, basically, yeah, officiating what it is and what it has been. We have a property tax for 2 Greg and a property tax for 4 Greg, and property tax for Hanks Tire Union Street. So they are all and Franklin is the LP shaped at the back. So they have always been treated separately, and just inadvertently merged because they were in the same name. If they had been in two different names, it wouldn't have happened. But because they were both under Hank's Tire Supply, they ended up coming together in the Planning Act, unbeknownst, of course, to us.
Okay, thanks, Marie. I'll ask for any questions or comments from committee members. Wendy.
It may be the first time that the Flemings have run into this, but we seem to have run into it a number of times, very similar issues in the last the last couple of years, that it was combined on title. So I am fine with going along with staff's recommendation to formalize this for the Flemings, and if that's the use they had always, and obviously both the lawyer and Carl have done their work, so I have no trouble supporting staff's recommendation.
Thank you, Wendy.
Jay?
Yeah, I agree, and it's regrettable that you've had to have a lawyer to look into this from no fault of your own, but yeah, I support staff's recommendation. Absolutely.
We're contributing to the pot.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Bill?
The only thing I can say is that I can see absolutely no reason why this should not be done as recommended. It was an error that it was separated in the first place, and so let's put it back together and be done with it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Okay. The committee is tasked in making a decision for this application under section 53 of the Planning Act. If the committee is ready to do so, I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Wendy, seconded by Jay. All in favor? Carried. Thank you for attending and participating in the planning process of application B20-06. Any participants that have not signed in or required further notice regarding the application are asked to please reach out to the planning coordinator, Mary Remig, by phone at the town hall. Appeal rights as prescribed by the Planning Act will be outlined on the notice of decisions. If you have any questions on this application or the process, I invite you to get in touch with our senior planner or planning coordinator. This concludes the public meeting for B20-06 for 2-4 Greg Street. Participants who do not wish to participate in the remainder of the meeting are welcome to sign out.
Thank you all.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
It was practically painless. It was practically painless, eh, Marie?
Thanks. I'll now pass the meeting over to Senior Planner Carl Grenke to report on notification summary of the revised Bellamy Farms subdivision proposal. Following this presentation, I will call on the public participants one at a time to offer feedback, comments, or questions regarding the proposal. I will also offer the applicant or their agents in attendance an opportunity to address any concerns brought to the committee by the public. Carl?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, everyone. Again, this application is certainly a larger application that we're going to be looking at. And for those who I haven't met, my name is Carl Grenke, Senior Planner with the town, and I'm going to be reviewing the application. I see the applicants are present here, abutting property owners as well as agents. So welcome everybody, and thank you. Dave, if you can load up the second presentation, please. Thank you. So this is for this is the public meeting for a revised subdivision application for Bellamy Farms. Next slide, please. So this so the property that's affected by this application, this phase of the subdivision, as you can see there, it is the undeveloped portion in between the townhouse area of phase 1 and Broadview Avenue. It's the property is the site is surrounded, of course, by the existing recently developed Ferrera Meadow subdivision, phase 1 Bellamy Farms, as well as wetland features to the south and west of the property. It's close to. It also borders the Cataraqui Trail, which provides some neat opportunities for recreation close to this area, and not too far from the highway commercial corridor along Lombard Street. Next slide, please. So the property owners, as we know, has applied to subdivide the 37-acre vacant parcel of land. It's historically meadow and woodland, generally a level site, but there is shallow bedrock across much of the site. So this proposal is the second phase of a larger subdivision draft approved in 2013. Final approval was given to phase 1. However, unfortunately, the draft approval lapsed with the balance of the proposal, and the proponents are still looking to proceed with their plans here. So we held a public meeting last December to consider a submission that was very similar to what was originally draft approved in 2013. Since then, the proponents have undertaken some revisions to the proposed concept, and fundamentally, the main reason they've taken these revisions is to address changing market conditions and demands for different types of housing that wasn't really contemplated at that original time. So this second public meeting is here to consider the revised proposal. Next slide, please. So the key changes here on this revised plan are there's more units, about roughly 60 more units on the site. So they're proposing to reduce the number of single detached from 109 units to 54, slightly reduce the number of semi-detached units from 14 to 10, and increase the number of townhouse units from 71 to 186. So the access and the road network is the same as what was proposed here. It would be a continuation of the new collector road, Staples Boulevard, that connects Ferrera Drive and a Broadview Avenue that's proposed to be widened. So as requested by the Public Works Department, the right-of-way is proposed to be widened to 22 meters along Staples. There are, of course, 6 new local streets with bike lane on one side of the new collector and sidewalks on all of the streets. A couple of the other changes too are block 103, that's a wetland block at the southeast corner of the site. That's the closest to Broadview Avenue. That open space block, of course, the wetland will continue to be protected, but that open space block is actually enlarged now to accommodate parkland. So that was a feature that wasn't part of the original plan, but is accommodated now. A proposed path at the northwest part of the subdivision connecting to, which was proposed to just be a little trail connecting to the Cataraqui Trail, is proposed to be widened to include a little parkette. There's also been discussion with the proponents about a couple of trail linkages on the site, and that would to improve connections within the community and between the Cataraqui Trail and Broadview Avenue. So those would require some external approvals through the Conservation Authority, as well as Enbridge, who has, of course, that gas easement along the eastern section of the site. But that's been a discussion between staff and the proponents for the better part of the last year, and certainly if this goes ahead, it's something we would continue to encourage. Next slide, please. So there's the proposed draft plan. So at the top, of course, you can see Bellamy Farms Phase 1. So on the right-hand side of the subdivision closest to Ferreira Meadows, the proponents are proposing largely townhouse development in that area. What was previously proposed was a mix of towns and singles, but they are proposing largely towns at this point, with more singles proposed for the western side, closer to the wetlands to the left of street number 4, which is the new collector road. So that's, I think, the biggest change, and ultimately, as a result of that change, the proponents have had to go back and look at traffic, and are going to have to look at a few of the other supporting studies that have been done in the past, because this is a bigger, a larger scale of development than what was original, or a larger density of development than what was originally contemplated. Next slide, please. So the property is currently designated for residential development. Our official plan has had that designation in place for a while. The plan does identify provincially significant wetlands all around the site, actually, and that certainly guided a lot of the environmental work that the proponents have had to undertake over the last few years. There is a zoning in place for the property that's created specifically for Bellamy Farms, and it's a residential type 5 special exception 4 zoning that allows the flexibility for single, semis, and townhouses. And then earlier this year, council approved revisions to allow slightly smaller townhouse lots than what were previously there before. The land actually, there is a holding provision that's been in place since the time of the original draft approval, and that simply precludes development from taking place until a satisfactory traffic impact study demonstrates the suitability of residential development. So if council approves the subdivision, then they would have to take the steps to lift the hold through the work, and they've been working closely with Public Works on the traffic counts, on the roads, on the road parameters, and the engineering. That's been an ongoing discussion for quite some time. Next slide, please. So the proponents have provided some supporting documentation to sort of justify the subdivision and create the technical address the technical matters that need to be addressed for an application such as that and such as this, and of course all information that's supplied to support a planning decision is part of the public record and available upon request. Next slide, please. So as before, public consultation, of course, is an integral part of the planning process, and we fulfilled our obligations under the Planning Act through notification of neighbors within 120 meters, notification of applicable public agencies, and publication in a local newspaper. And it's an opportunity for all interested persons and agencies to provide written submissions to the town before a decision is made. And certainly I'm grateful for those who've signed in tonight, and this is your opportunity to ask questions. It's the opportunity for the developers to sort of follow up or explain some of the details of their proposal as well. Next slide, please. So of course, that's why we're holding the public meeting. No decision is going to be made on anything tonight. The comments and feedback received by us will be considered by staff and the Planning Advisory Committee. And then ultimately council has this will go to council for a final decision. Next slide, please. So when we look at a subdivision application or any planning application, we need to look at the provinces and the town's planning policies. So does this the intent of the town's official plans to comply with the provincial policy statement that guides planning decisions? And in coming to do that evaluation, of course, we listen to feedback from abutting property owners, from other agencies, especially in this case, the Rideau Conservation Authority and Public Works Department have been instrumental through the technical review process, and certainly I'm grateful for the expertise that they blended to this very substantial project. And if it does go forward, if council does approve it, then they're instrumental in next steps in terms of finalizing conditions. So ultimately, council will make the decision based on all information provided. Next slide. So just a quick note on the process. If the application is supported by council, what council would then do is give draft approval. So draft subdivision approval, and that's accompanied by conditions, and these are conditions that all need to be more technical, detailed conditions that all need to be fulfilled before final approval is given. And that's where we get into more of the prescriptive detail, landscaping, engineering, some of the studies done today are to support the principle of the use, but then there's the finer details, the finer lot grading and drainage and road specifications and other details that need to be all done, and then also accommodated within a subdivision agreement. And of course, is responsible for fulfilling conditions. Draft approval is normally good for about 3 years, or that can be extended. When conditions are fulfilled, final approval is given and development can occur. And so if this is the first step of that process, there's a lot of work that the proponents would need to do and work with the town and others to undertake that. Next slide, please. So at this point, we welcome the feedback from agencies and the public. Normally, what happens with a subdivision application is staff will inform issues and options to be presented to the next planning advisory committee that's going to more deeply dig into the issues that have arisen at the public meeting, as well as from our review that we work with and we'll be looking for direction of the planning advisory committee, which will provide that advice to the council to make the final decision. So that would be so if that's how the committee wants to proceed, then we would be bringing that back to their very next report in early January. Next, I don't think there's any more slides, so I'll conclude there and pass it back to the chair to conduct the public portion of the meeting. Yeah. Thank you, David, for running the power.
Thanks, Carl. We'll begin hearing from members of the public. All comments and questions need to be addressed through the chair. If you have signed in with the recording secretary and have requested to speak to this application, I will call on you by name one at a time to offer your feedback. I will now open the floor to the applicants to provide any further clarification or comment on the public's concern. Ken Shelley?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, Carl was coming through a bit broken there at the end. I'm not sure what that was from. So, yeah, just like.
Ken?
Yes.
Excuse me, I'm gonna, I have one coming in here before you.
Okay, that's fine.
Janet Carpenter?
Hello,
Hello?
I'm here.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm a homeowner on Code Crescent, so my property backs onto Bellamy Farm. And I had a few questions here. I'm not sure who's going to be able to answer how this goes. I guess my first one is, will any consideration be given in terms of a transition from an area that is primarily single story, single family, or semi-detached residential area to an area that is now in the new revision packed with townhouses?
Any other questions?
Yes. I also wondered too that on the revised plan, I noticed that blocks, particularly blocks 97 through 102 in the legend are indicated as townhouses. Is there any way of knowing what type of townhouse? Is it a single story townhouse or is it the 2.5 story monstrosity townhouses that I'm seeing across the field? That would be another question that I had. Because, and particularly lot one or block 101 is the one that backs onto my property. And that block in particular is significantly smaller than all the other blocks. And I'm just wondering if the massive townhouses are going to be crammed onto that small lot as well.
Okay, anything else, Jenna?
Yeah, I just wondered too, Carl mentioned about in one of the slides, there was I guess it was the variance for the reduced lot size. I'm just wondering if that applies to the entire Bellamy Farm project now, or was that just a one-time, oops, my bad mistake, the townhouses are here, we'll let it go on these townhouses, or are all the new ones going to have the same reduced lot sizes as well? And the other question is, the 30-foot easement, the Enbridge easement is right behind me. Is that included as part of the lawn for the townhouses that are behind me?
Anything else, Jenna?
No, those were my questions. Those were my questions and concerns.
Okay, thank you. I will now ask the applicant to provide any clarification or comment on the public's concerns. Ken?
Yep, I'm back on.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you for those questions. I can answer them fairly clearly because we had anticipated we wanted to make a nice transition from the Code Lee homes here. So the lady that was just on, I can assure her what we have planned there is a bungalow style townhouses. They are on extra deep lots because a 30-foot, 30-meter lot is normal. It will have the additional easement that the gas easement, they don't want it anymore. So there's an extra 12 meters of lot size. So those lots will be 42 meters deep, and it'll strictly be single-story bungalows along that whole strip of street. We had taken that into account to just, we felt that would be the right thing to do to make a nice transition point. So I hope that answers her questions. I think that encompassed all the three questions that she asked, I think.
Carl?
Thank you all. Just in response to the question about the zoning. So earlier this year, the amendment to the lot size, lot frontage applies to the entire R5 special.
Okay, anything else, Ken?
Well, just to kind of recap a little bit, you know, this is a resubmission of a previous approved draft plan. The change in density has been driven because the entire neighborhood is generally a single family neighborhood. Kind of as a minimum for a single family home. So it's been extremely well received. I think it really broadens the community base where you can transition from a family style environment to let's say maybe a seniors more environment with a single story facility, which we find is very, very attractive to some folks that don't want all the work and maintenance that a single family home brings on. We're very sensitive to the parkland. Carl was very insistent for us to really look at what we could do for additional parkland. And as he mentioned, we took a big block of homes away from the south side. So there will be a very large park area right next to the wetland on the south. There is a wetland bounded on the west side, and then you have the Cat Trail kind of on the north side. So it is a very inclusive community. It's a community that can't expand any further west or north or south. That this is the kind of the end of the end of the line, you can say. And we feel that we have really come up with a very good solution that it'll be taken up with townhomes, which have been very popular. And then we still have single families in the phase 3. So it makes a nice mix of homes and housing. And with Staples Ave, they asked if they can have that the street number 4, which is the extension of Staples, to have it an extra wide right of way. So there will be a bike path on that road, which will be taken up also when it goes to Broadview. The bike path on Broadview, so it'll add some interconnectivity there. The proximity to the new school or the new improved school will be extremely, I'm sure, interesting for families with young children, and it gives it makes a community that's a much more diverse community, and we know that from talking with planners, etc., that is something that's very interesting for the planning staff to make sure that when a development is done, that it really encompasses different housing styles and forms. Like I said, the predominant area will be is single family. There is single family still slated for the third phase of this, which would be along the Cat Trail along the western boundary, and the townhouse would be basically in the center of this development. And we think it makes good planning sense. I think it makes good visual sense too, and with the potential of connectors, that was one thing that was mentioned that Carl mentioned. We've looked at the connector paths you can have here, and really we are all in favor of that. But the reality is that these connector paths really pass over wetlands.